This is more of a rant than it is a tip and trick or advice, or maybe it is advice, and it has to do with phone systems and something that I've seen go horribly wrong over and over and over again, which is this idea that you can lift and shift a on-premise phone system to some sort of hosted phone system. And by the way, I don't care if they call it hosted or cloud or, it's in our data center and you connect to it or whatever it is. And without getting way too technical on this, I'm going to tell you why. In the voice over IP world, commonly SIP, you have a lot of things that work and provide different functions. So when a user connects and authenticates with your system, you have a registration server. You might have a proxy server. You might have a session border controller. You have some sort of a media, and this is typically expressed in a bunch of different ways. But the big issue here is that when a system is on premise and you have direct access between media and the server, aka the phone can connect to the server directly that's in your office, versus taking it off premise, things have to change and behavior has to change. So one of the basic things, for instance, is if you have shared line, and you want to have a phone with a boss and their assistant, or you just want to have an extension, a line that shows up on multiple devices at the same time. When you move from on-prem, where the phones can talk directly to the server with nothing in between them, to something connected via the internet, all of a sudden now the phones are connecting to that something via the internet with a shared IP address. So that something via the internet needs to understand with each one of those line registrations that it's not actually just the same phone registering and re-registering and re-registering. And what happens a lot of times with these systems is the first phone will register and it'll connect, and then the second phone will register and the first phone will get deregistered effectively, and the third phone will register and nothing just works right. The second place where this creates a big mess is usually in contact center software. So if you're using some sort of on-premise phone system with an on-premise contact center, that on-premise contact center is injecting itself into the media path, and it's either functioning as what's called a B2B UA, a back-to-back user agent, or there's something else going on, but it can effectively sit and function in between what you would consider to be like your PBX, your server, your phone server, your phone system server, and the actual phone itself. Now, why this is a problem is not. First off, it's the same problem as what I was saying before. Just moving this into the cloud or moving this onto the internet causes complications. But usually in a contact center, you have a piece of software that's running on the agent's desktop that's actually doing things for you. So it could be as basic as screen pop. So when you receive a phone call, your application can pop up, your CRM can load on the screen automatically with the caller details, or you're maintaining dispositions, or you have a dialer software, all these different things. Well, now that dialer needs to be able to interact with your phone, which also needs to be able to interact with the server, which needs to be able to interact with the contact center software. Now, if you just go and lift and shift and try to lift and shift this whole thing into the cloud, basically off your premise into somebody else's platform, your network architecture has to change as well. So now the phones are usually on their own VLAN with their own VPN connected into the provider's network, but your desktops also need to be able to connect via a VPN and connect onto the provider's network. And then if you introduce remote or work from home stations, this complicates things even further, because now are these phones behind a VPN with access into the provider's network? And then what are you doing with that VPN? Does that VPN need to connect to your corporate resources, or does that VPN need to connect into the provider's network as well? So these things, all of a sudden, what starts off as like let's just move, our Cisco call manager with a CC1 agent into, something else. It really quickly spirals out of control into a whole slew of issues that you're going to have to contend with. Now, the other side of this is when you're not talking about lift and shift, you're talking about changing software and changing functionality and changing the usability of these systems. The biggest problem this comes into is if you're using the system in a way different from how it was designed. So if you've somewhere along the lines decided that we want to hack our inbound-based contact center to also do reporting for us for an outbound-based calling because we want to track sales efficiency, that contact center software is not a sales enablement tool. It's not designed to do that. And so when you take and you look at inbound contact center software and you try to shoehorn outbound functionality into that, that's really like a sales enablement functionality, things don't line up right anymore, and people are going to be unhappy with you. So, this is you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing. But, along those lines, it's my point with all this is, you can't just take and look at something that's running in your office or running on your premise and say, hey, let's just take this thing and move this somewhere else. There's a lot of network design that goes into it. There's a lot of implications that go into this. There's a lot of interactions with applications that you have to deal with and contend with. And just shifting this more than likely is going to create more problems for you than they're going to solve. So before you go down this path, make sure you actually understand, how does this application work? What does your network architecture look like? How do users interact with it? Where do your users sit? How do they interact with things? And it might be in your best interest. I'm not going to say it might be. It's probably going to be in your best interest to figure out how to go through a migration to a different platform and really understand what your business needs in that platform and how to map the business needs with the proper software in the first place to accomplish what it is that you're trying to do. So instead of shoehorning something that you're currently running on premise, it probably was shoehorned and mutated and et cetera over the time. Taking it from a start from scratch approach and finding something that makes more sense for you in today's world.